Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
And you join me now for probably an unprecedented hour. Certainly something that's never happened before has already happened. I'm joined in the studio by two men I'll introduce you to in a moment, who, for reasons that have become clear, have obscured their faces in case we use any of the footage later to promote their work, actually, would be the phrase I would use. But they can't be easily identified for reasons that will become clear. We've spoken in the past about, and it's not the right word to use, actually, vigilantes, because vigilantes, hang on, fellas, I'll just let me get my bit out and then we'll bring you in. Vigilantes decide the punishment. That's why I want to get that word removed from this conversation. Vigilantes don't just appoint themselves to track down miscreants and wrongdoers. They then mete out summary justice as well. The gentlemen I'm going to introduce you to don't do that. They do something much subtler and, in my opinion, much more admirable. But I sit here regularly and bang on about the rule of law and the importance of observing regulations and the point about anarchy following if we don't actually keep ourselves on a straight and narrow path. And then these two come along and they just blow it all up. Because what dark justice do is essentially entrap people, adults, looking to strike up, well, grooming children on the internet in the hope of abusing them. That's what they do. And they find these adults and they arrange to meet them. The adult, of course, believes that they're going to be meeting a minor who has already been subjected to the grooming process. And when they turn up for that meeting, they find my two guests, who are always now accompanied by police. Have I got that right, Callum?
Most of the time, police will respond unless there's something more serious going on.
So you've done 75, what do you call them, jobs, projects, targets?
Sting operations.
75 sting operations. 69 people out of 79 people turned up to meet what they thought was a minor following sexual grooming. You've got, how many convictions have we got now, Scott?
40 plus now. I think it's 43 or something like that there now. And obviously we've got a lot more people who are on bail, ready to go to court. You know, just these things can take a short time or a long time, just depending on the justice system, really.
Of course, 42 convictions out of 75 arrests, and half of them have been given custodial sentences. It's astonishing what you do. Scott, tell me how it started.
Basically, there was a TV show that talked about the problems the COP were facing and how the police were getting more money taken away from them. And, you know, we've seen a problem where children were becoming a victim of society, really, because the government are taking more money away from the lower people at the bottom of the food chain, if you like. So we decided to put a profile online to see what would happen. So
you created the profile of a young girl?
Yeah, and the amount of people who contacted us, I think, scared the living hell out of us. Like,
so at that point, you didn't have a plan to do sting operations?
No,
you were just having a look through the window, as it were, into this world that had scared you, shocked you.
And we basically climbed through that window, and ever since we've been trapped in there, because once you get involved in it, it's not something you can ever walk away from. What
where did you put the profile, Callum? I don't want to ask you any questions that might give any perverts listening to this a kind of head start on avoiding you. So please feel free. I don't give this to many guests in my studio, I've got to tell you, but please feel free to completely ignore any questions or tell me that you're not going to answer.
It was a very popular dating / social media site. As we all know, kids will sign up to these websites. Single mothers looking for love will sign up to these websites. And essentially, what happens on them websites is these adults will groom what they think what is a single mother to get to the kids. But we broke that down and put what they thought was a child on that website.
Right.
And we had about 150 messages within the first sort of 5-6 hours.
Yeah.
and we were looking through pages and pages, and it was like
all dodgy. I mean,
and not all dodgy,
Right.
but only 2 of 100 would say no.
Yeah, like the rest would want to continue chatting. That's,
after you'd revealed your
Yeah.
age.
yeah.
And say we had the more people to help us. Say we had a group of 50, there would still be more work to come in. And
So it's I mean it's like a Herculean task. It's like painting the fourth bridge. The minute
Yeah.
you finish, you could start again. It would never ever end.
there's no shortage.
So how then? So I've got this clear. You go on. You create a profile that looks like what sort of age? Would you 12, 13?
11 to 15.
And they beat a path to your door.
Yeah, I mean, we have some who are so desperate to want to talk to this child that, you know, you go away from your phone for 5 seconds, so let's say like the WhatsApp and you'll come back and there'll be 30, 40 messages from them. Where are you? What are you doing now? Where are your parents? Are you alone?
And how quickly, I mean, those questions are part of the answer to the question I've just asked, but how quickly do you establish that they are, because it could be a young boy of the same age. How quickly do you establish that what you've got here is a fully grown man hoping to strike up some form of sexual contact with someone they know now, because you've told them to be age between 11
Fairly
and 15?
much straight away by the attitude and the way that they talk.
Go on.
Like certain things that they'll say, like they've got jobs and stuff that they drive, you know, like stuff like that, which gives away that they are over.
The idea being that would impress a 13-year-old
Yeah,
girl.
because a lot of them think, like, if they tell them that they've got a card, and then they'll say, oh, well, we can go for a drive somewhere, me and you alone. You know, so it leads sort of like from that path, really.
And Callum, the decision then to actually try and tempt these people out into the public, that I mean, that's really where things go strange, isn't it? Because what you've done so far is essentially research, and you've been shocked by what you've discovered, and you're left with a feeling, I want to actually do something about this, which is what makes you both extraordinary in a good way or a bad way, as for other people to decide. I've made my feelings clear. So tell me about, and presumably you spoke about it together, when did you come up with the idea of actually trying to catch them?
It was like November 2014. We set up that profile, and it was sort of like, after seeing all the police cuts and all the COP stuff, understaffed, all the technology not up to date and up to standard, and we set up that profile, and we thought, oh, we'll just set it up and see how many of these people will not want to talk to a child, will not talk to a child sexually, will not groom a child. And it was the opposite effect. It was like they were okay with the age, they were okay. The child was 14, 13, whatever, 12. And they would groom that child for a number of days or a number of months, well, what they thought was a child.
So what sort of time are you putting into this?
17 hours a day.
So you're online pretty much constantly at this point?
Online, or whenever we, like, even if we go shopping or something like that.
You've got your
we're constantly on
tablets and smartphones with you, and the profile is up there.
Yeah.
So you're, in a way, this is reeling them in, isn't it?
Yeah, in a sense, yeah.
And then the decision to actually try and catch them, where did that come from?
That's their decision. If they want to meet that child following sexual grooming, then...
So you wait for them to...
Yeah.
But that must have happened relatively quickly. Did you know from the start, Scott, that you were going to go to these? Because it sounds to me as if when you first started out, it was more, as I've said, an exercise in research, and then suddenly you realise that you've got an opportunity here to catch one of these.
Yeah, well, when they sort of like, it came knocking on our door, basically, like the person kept pushing for a meet.
Yeah.
And we were both sat there and like, we were discussing it, like, what should we do and how should we go about it? And then how we thought about it was, how do we know that the next person he talks to isn't going to be a real kid?
Yeah.
We can't just walk away. If this man wants to meet us, we need to meet him and get him arrested.
And you agreed?
Yeah. And
straight away?
And that man...
Did you talk to anyone else? Talk to your parents? Or I mean, because it's risky business.
They know, but we don't regularly talk about it when we go to their houses.
And it's just you two, is it?
Yeah.
And you just said, look, let's go and let's go and meet him.
Yeah, let's go and meet him and confront him and pass on the information. to the relevant authorities.
And this was just the two of you at this point?
Yeah, this was just two of us, and this was a guy who raped a 12-year-old in the 1990s, I believe it was, and got her pregnant, and she had to have an abortion, and he also got done for an armed robbery.
You didn't know any of this at the time?
We didn't know any of this at the time.
But it does somewhat highlight the risk that you expose yourself to.
Yeah.
When you go, tell me about that first one. Tell me, I mean, what were you feeling? And where had you arranged to meet him?
We arranged to meet him on the Millennium Bridge in Newcastle, and I'm not used to confrontation. I don't like confrontation.
You've picked an odd way to pass your time.
But you sort of get used to it after a while. I don't know, it's a funny feeling. And then obviously the adrenaline rush and all that before we confront them. We were like, what do we do? Do we confront him or film covertly and film his car covertly?
How would you know that it was him?
He sent a picture of himself.
And it's the shamelessness of it that's so staggering, isn't it, for people like me who know next to nothing about the whole thing.
And he sent explicit pictures of himself, which is
something of a giveaway. So you're there on the Millennium Bridge in Newcastle, and he turns up.
Yeah, he turns up. We had to somehow think of a way to get him out of his car, and he got out of the car. And
he's looking for a 12, 13-year-old girl?
He's looking for a 13-year-old.
So how'd you get him out of the car?
I don't know. It was sort of like I can't even remember how I got him out of the car.
Told him to meet us in the middle of the bridge.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then tell me, Scott, about the minute you see him in the flesh coming towards you.
It was a very scary moment. I'm not gonna lie to you. Like, we're both like from council estate, so we're used to seeing like stuff that's not your everyday stuff. But I don't know, in that situation, it was just the way that he acted and the way that he went on that was quite scary. But at the end of the day, we knew why we were there, and we knew that we were there to stop this person from doing harm and destroying a child's life.
And what one of you's got the camera?
I had the camera.
You're carrying the camera and you're fronting him up?
Yeah.
Well, we'll get back to that in a minute. I'm going to take some travel news. This is obviously slightly uncharted waters for me, so at the moment, glancing at the clock, I can, if Scott and Callum agree, I can envision this interview going on a lot longer than half an hour, and we may wait until Monday to canvass reaction to it, but as I say, it's a movable feast, so just stay exactly where you are. I don't imagine anyone will be touching their radio dial, and we'll be back imminently. The time now is 12:16.
Leading Britain's conversation, LBC, with James O'Brien.
21 minutes after 12. Look, this is one of the most serious conversations we've ever had, but I was just chatting to the lads in the studio about how for them in particular it must be important to have reminders that not all human beings are dirty scum, actually, and if you're just tuning in and wondering what the hell we're talking about, because that's not the kind of language you expect to hear from me, you'll soon find out. And I was just about to introduce you again. Scott is here, Callum is here, and together they are Dark Justice. And it sounds like that line in Bill and Ted, doesn't it? And together we are Wild Stallions. just doing that to remind everybody that these guys probably need a few more windows onto the warmth and humour that humanity can offer up than the rest of us do. We are discussing their work in sting operations, catching, entrapping, in the literal sense of the word, not in the criminal sense of the word, men who have gone online looking for young girls they can sexually abuse. There is no sugaring that pill, no diluting that reality. And we left them at the point where their first sting operation was unfolding in the middle of the Millennium Bridge in Newcastle. Callum had the camera. Scott was fronting up the man who had turned up hoping to meet a young girl, having sent pictures, and I don't need to go into any more detail. And then you clock him.
Yeah. Face to face, like from less distance than me and you are.
And at this point in time, he hasn't got a clue who you are.
No.
Go on.
And then, like, I ask him what he's doing there. He asks who I am, and I tell him that I'm Dark Justice, and he says, "Who's that?" And then he starts walking back over the Millennium Bridge towards Gateshead, and at that point we ring the police again to tell him that he's trying to get away from the scene. And then he just bolts. He's just
and he
gone.
almost reverses into me.
Really? So he's seen you as well by this point, because you're trying to get as much footage as possible.
There's some steps near where he's run up to the car park, because if I was still standing behind his car, he was going to try and reverse over me.
So you'd spoken to the police beforehand?
Yeah.
And told them what you were doing?
Mm-hmm.
What did they say to you?
They took no notice at that point. They were like, oh, it's just kids messing about, like, whatever.
Why did you contact them? Because you wouldn't know what to do with him if the plan came off, as it were.
Yeah, we had little understanding of what our rights were then, but
Right.
then we obviously get a lot of support, and a lot of people who are either coming out of uni or solicitors are coming forward saying, you have a right to do this. You can detain the person
up to and this point, not beyond it. So the police had not taken you seriously. Then you rang them back and said, we're here.
Yeah.
He's turned up.
Yeah.
What did they do then?
We went to a police station to make a statement. I received a WhatsApp message from the suspect at the time. He's convicted now,
Aye.
saying I'm basically going to top myself in the nearest woods. And I think it was like North Hampshire. They caught him on a NPR camera
Fleeing.
Yeah.
So you have enough detail, and he knows this because he's exposed himself in every sense of the word, actually, to such a degree that you know him and you know where he is.
Yeah, we have a number plate, registration plate number for his car, his name, his address.
And tell me when you walked into the police station that day. And
They were like, "Oh, it's not that serious. Just make a statement, and we'll crack on with it and send it to the police the area where he lives." And then I received that text, and then the police were like, "This is serious."
I see. So when they said it wasn't that serious, you don't know whether they believed you or they hadn't quite got their head around what it was that you'd done.
I don't think they'd ever seen something like it. I think they'd always seen police regulated sting operations where they go through Reaper and stuff like that, and I have to file like investigation stuff, and
of course
they were like, we've never seen nothing like it. Joe Public going out catching these people.
And when they saw the WhatsApp message of him threatening suicide, they obviously they have a duty of care from the other side of the road, don't they? From the other end of the telescope.
They said, "Can I see the message?
Yeah.
Does it say that?" And I went, "You can see the message. It's in black and white." And I showed them the message, and she got straight on to obviously traffic units and so on, and NPR.
How did you feel when you got that message? Did you believe him?
I don't know. Yeah, no, because it was quite a cold message. It was quite a long message, like a suicide note.
Did it give you pause? Did it make you feel any guilt?
A little, yeah. It's like, but I don't know, because he was there to meet.
Tell me about it. I'm not suggesting you should have felt guilty, but it's quite a weird thing to be part of.
I'm not like pro kill people who commit crimes or whatever, but I think we need a system where it works rather than suspended sentences.
And you, at this point, clearly the police are taking you seriously.
Yeah.
You don't know what's going to unfold. Your work is almost done now. You just give the police all the details of the grooming process. And what offence has he committed? Because what's quite odd about this, from a legal point of view, is he's committed an offence in some ways against a person that doesn't exist.
It's an attempted offence. An attempt to meet a child following sexual grooming is normally it. Or it can also be attempting to incite a child into sexual activity.
And did you detect a change, Scott, in the police's attitude towards you in the case of this first sting? Was there a point at which they sort of looked at you with a degree of respect?
After a couple, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like, when they seen the evidence that we were putting forward to them, and they couldn't fault it, you know what I mean? It's there and it's laid out in an amazing way. And, you know, there was sort of like, this is really good. You know what I mean? It's good how you've collected it and how you've stored it. And
were you never threatened with arrest yourself? Were you never? Because the phrase that they'd use is taking the law into your own hands. I know that you're not, but that is the lazier perception from the outside. Because you know, I mean, some people listening to this will be wondering how the hell you don't chin these people when they turn up to see you. But of course, if you did, you'd get arrested yourself.
Well, there was one night we went to drop off some evidence at an undisclosed police station. And the the policeman was in the car, and he basically said, "You're going to get in a lot of trouble for doing this one day," and reversed, took the disc and went.
Meaning trouble with the criminals or trouble with...
I don't know what he meant.
I'm assuming he meant with the police.
Because there is a danger, well, there's a temptation for the public to think, why the hell aren't you doing this? Why are you stopping me speeding when you could be doing what Dark Justice are doing? But they can't. I mean, the money and the numbers just aren't there, are they?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, like, in Newcastle, for example, because we've been doing what we're doing, that's our stomping ground. Northumbria Police have done one operation similar to ours, just so it gets media attention, basically.
Did they come to you for advice?
No, but we did get pulled into a room once and asked what websites we use and how we go about setting profiles up. So
you're teaching them in a way?
So, I mean, I couldn't possibly say if we are, but I would assume that information's went to the right place if the...
So it's coming out to 12:30. You can stay with us for a bit longer, boys.
Yeah, no
nice one. So we'll return in just a moment. If you just tuned in, Scott and Callum are the men behind... Well, not just the men behind the masks, they're the men behind Dark Justice as well, which is the name they gave themselves when they set about trying to tempt men seeking sexual contact with underage girls into the open. And if you missed their introduction half an hour or so ago, of the 75 people that they have arranged to meet, and legally that original suggestion is always made by the target, right? You can't, because there are, as you say, it's quite tricky legal territory. Of the 75 arranged to meet, 69 have turned up. Of those, 42 have subsequently been convicted. Some of the remaining number, of course, will be on bail or remand awaiting court dates, and 20 out of the 42 subsequently convicted have been given a custodial sentence. So from fears engendered by watching a television documentary program to a research driven inquiry on the internet just to see how many of them are out there, 20 people have woken up in prison as a result of their work. So if you're surprised to hear a rationalist like me saying that I can't really think of anything that contributes more to society than the work that these men do, you'll be beginning by now, I think, to understand. It's 12:30, and I'm joined in the studio by Dark Justice, namely Scott and Callum, who since November 2014 have been spending much of their lives online operating fake profiles of girls aged between 11 and 15. And you know I'm a dad of two little girls, so you know that I find it very difficult to separate the father from the journalist on days like this, and I know that you're going to forgive me for not even trying to. It doesn't happen very often, but I'm not even going to try and stay objective or be the journalist. They are finding men that would hurt your daughters in the worst ways imaginable, and they're handing them over to the authorities, and they've got a hit rate that most police forces would be proud of. So the relationship with the police, actually, can I ask you a tough question before we continue?
Yeah.
Have either of you been abused?
No, never. We've got many friends who have been abused, and after starting this, we've had abused victims pour the heart out of us, and it's hard to sit and read something like that, and you don't know what to say back to them.
I know.
And we've got charities now who are approaching us saying, if you know any abuse victims, you can send them our way, they're more than welcome. Which is a public service.
It's another side of the work that you're doing.
I mean, like another aspect of that, as well as we've helped people gain a voice who would never have had it before, and we've helped people become, if you like, stronger within themselves to the point where they've been able to go to the police, and that's one thing that we're very proud of. Like, we've helped people get people who've abused them put in prison.
Let me read some of the messages coming in, because I don't think we're going to take calls today. Well done, the Dark Justice guys. They should start a training course for ex-police, get funding for this to go countrywide. There are more good people in this country than we realise. James, you won't get this, guys. It's a reference to where I live. He says, give these guys a tenner for a pint each, and I'll leave 2 pints for you behind the bar at the George IV in Chiswick High Road. These guys need a medal for doing this. I hope they can have a crack at institutional abuse one day with their electronic skills. I think that you'll find they're busy enough as it is. And the legal status Steve asks about, we're getting onto that now. How do the police view them? Do they help the police? What an amazing show. That's coming up next, Steve. Okay. Pauline points out that especially after hearing of the 22% budget cuts ongoing to the police that you discussed yesterday, these two young men's voluntary work is invaluable. God bless Scott and Callum for fighting against evil in the flesh. And so it goes on. I have to tell you, so it goes on. and I understand why. But let's go back to Steve's question, because the police now actively cooperate with you? Or do you have points of contact? Because there was scepticism at one point, suspicion even. Tell me what that relationship is like now.
It's progressed the relationship for the better. As soon as we ring 999, suspect has arrived. We've eyeballed them. They just send immediate response because...
And there's blue lights, they treat it blues and twos, the whole deal.
Blues and twos the whole way.
And have you had private conversations? I don't want you to betray any confidences, but it seems to me that the average police officer would know that they should be doing this, and they want to be doing this, but they literally can't be doing this.
I've had police officers say to me, well done, like, I have kids this age at home. I don't know if I should be saying this, he said.
Yeah, and that's what I mean.
And I was just like, well, of course you're going to feel that at it, and so on. And
have any of them ever told you to stop?
Yeah, at the beginning it was like, oh, stop, but me and Scott just kept continuing. We just, when they say stop, it sort of like gives an extra ammunition just to catch more people.
Yeah, I mean, like I don't want to say any police officers' names.
No, well, don't. You get me into trouble. You've got masks on.
One we talked to, she said, I'm glad that yous are doing something, because it doesn't seem that we're doing an awful lot. You know what I mean? And that's from the other side of the fence.
I mean, that's the moral explosion, really. Yeah. Because however academic a conversation you want to have about legal theory and jurisprudence and rights and ethics, the bottom line is that these men turn up and you hand them over to the law. So, I mean, the law has to, however complicated it might be, the law has to be grateful for that to happen. The average law enforcer has to be grateful.
It's always the ones who are at the top who are told by, like, for example, the government, tell them off. And, you know, they'll come in every now and again and they will tell us off. And, you know, it's fair on their side, they have to. But, you know, it's like they always say, we're going to tell you this. We know that you ain't going to take the advice, but it is something that we have to tell you.
That's their duty of care.
Most just say they're wasting the breath now. They say we're wasting our breath, but it's very controversial what you're doing, and you're catching a lot of people. Are being told by such and such to say stop doing what you're doing, cease operations, and so on.
What about we got a page message once that a person had been contacting this woman's daughter, and she went, I rang the police, they came out, they said it would be hard for them to try and track it down, and she said, the officer said to me, oh, you might want to check a page out on Facebook called Dark Justice. They came to us, and within, I think it was about 45 minutes, we had the name and the address of the person who was talking to their daughter, passed it back to them, gave it to the police, and the police then got in touch with us asking us how we did it.
And this is computer skills?
Yeah, it's just anyone who can access the internet could have done that, so...
But you just have the tools, you just know what you're doing.
Yeah.
The website, you mentioned the Facebook page, that's just stick Dark Justice in the search box on Facebook. The website is darkjustice.co.uk. A lot of people offering support, both verbal and financial. How do you fund yourselves? How do you, because if you're doing, as you've said, 17 hours a day online, you're not earning a wage.
The family, we get very little not very little, but all we do with the donations is go back in our wristbands and go back into postage and
keep the website up.
And keep the website up. And what we want to do with why we do the merch and stuff like that, people might think, they're making an awful lot of money, but we're not. No. The postage is very expensive in this country.
Yes, and if you were signing on under the current rules of job seekers allowance, you'd be sanctioned almost immediately.
Yeah.
Because you're not available for work. You're doing this.
Yeah.
For reasons that are pretty clear. What about the personal risk? Some of the people that, you mentioned that your first caller was someone who'd already been convicted of crimes involving children, but also an armed robber, so a particularly unpleasant piece of work. You are at risk, and when they have been arrested and charged and are possibly facing a prison sentence, it's your testimony that sends them down. You become witnesses for the prosecution, am I right?
Yeah.
So scared or vulnerable or threatened?
What we have in our bedroom, case we do get a person who says we want to meet straight away, is a bulletproof vest by our bed. Soon as a meet comes in, that's put on, and we go at the meet.
Not many people can say they sleep with a bulletproof vest next to them, but...
And after you've caught people,
yeah,
presumably they try to get back in contact with you or not?
Had family threaten us,
Yeah.
people who we've caught, and like one person said, if you go to court, basically, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that, but, you know...
To give evidence, if you go to court to give evidence.
Yeah, if we go to court against his brother, which I don't know why anyone would have defended him for what he was doing.
Sure.
Even though when we caught him, he said he wasn't him, and he said he was his brother. You know what I mean? It's like still defending him, but
Yeah.
like we just rang the police and just said, look, he's intimidating us, and he got a 2-year prison sentence suspended for that.
For threatening to beat you up or threatening to hurt
I mean,
you.
like we
and worse.
don't scare easy, but you know, over the time that we've been doing this, we've been attacked. You know,
on a sting.
Yeah.
Because that would be the obvious.
I got punched in the face. I think it was about 5 days ago. It's becoming like a daily occurrence for me now. I don't care if I get punched in the face.
So how many? Well, look after yourselves. I mean,
yeah.
We try best to avoid it. But
yes. How many stings are you doing now?
Probably is about.
We did 3 last week.
Yeah, 3 last week. 3 stings last week.
And you don't. It's not like most appointments. You can't say, "Oh, I'm a bit busy. I'll come back."
Yeah.
So presumably, if you get someone suggesting a meet, and you're in the middle of something important, you drop everything.
Yeah.
I hesitate to say like Batman and Robin, but that kind of is where you are.
It's sort of like when the police hit the red button. And
yes.
Drop everything. Go and do this thing. And
what about the fear of someone pulling a knife on you, or someone sort of? I know you wear a bulletproof vest, but it doesn't cover your face. It's you are exposing yourself to quite a high level of risk, which is partly why the police have to warn you off.
Yeah, I mean, but with faces out, with like ours, knives wouldn't do much damage to them anyway.
when we confront, we're quite close to these people, and we tell them to take their hands out of the pocket. If they don't take their hands out of the pocket, take a step back.
Do they clock? As soon as you front them up, they know what's happened.
Yeah, they know.
As soon as, and if they try and run, then they're going to have me pursue them through a busy city centre.
And you've done that.
Yeah, and I've done that.
I tried to do that.
Chasing them down. It's not as quick.
not as
quick as Callum. Well, it's horses for courses, isn't it? And I mean, what about the future? Because I can't quite imagine if I had done what you had done. And I think everybody listening will have a small part of themselves that think they should have done what you have done in some way, but we can't. You know, that's not how the world works. How could you ever do anything normal after this, when the importance level of what you do with your time every day is off the...
I don't think I could sleep at night if I stopped doing this thing. And when's the next abuser's going to strike? When's the next online groomer going to strike?
Yeah, it's like when you're not actively like talking to anyone or something, and you'll get to a period where you might only have 2 or 3 talking, and then when you hear something in the news, or sort of inside you sort of think like, you know, why is this still happening? You know what I mean? Like that could have been one we're talking to. You see, even like say 10 years time, I can probably still see us being somewhere.
Well, I can. Yeah, I mean, because to go off and do something else would just feel so strange.
Yeah, I mean, it would just that, and the fact that it would be, you would sit down at night time and think, well, what happens if that last person I was going to catch, or the next person I was going to catch was going to do this? You know, it's sort of like you've got to do it.
It's 12:45. Feels like you've only been in here for 30 seconds, but we're going to have to knock it at the head at 1 o'clock. I'll just remind you of the website, darkjustice.co.uk, where people can they make straight donations to the work that you do. That's all sort of above the line. Listen to this from Lee. This is relevant to a lot of people. These 2 guys truly deserve the utmost recognition. I know they can't accept financial payments to live, but you can make a donation to support their work. So I'm just clarifying that, because he asks whether he could pay your website hosting fees. It'd be very easy to get in touch with these guys via the website. You can send them emails and messages. And then he ends with a line, I have 2 children in the northeast.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we can accept that, and obviously if
You might want to see the bill first, or
Well, that's what I mean.
if they want an invoice, we can
No, of course.
send it across and whatnot.
But get in touch, Lee, via the website. I'm going to take some more travel news now, but that line there, I have 2 children in the northeast, because I got 2 children in West London, and the idea that if you were working in their postcode area, well, I was about to say my opinion if you couldn't get any higher, but I've got to try and claw back a modicum of objectivity before this interview ends. It's 12:47, nearly at the end of our time with Dark Justice, alias Scott and Callum. We've been speaking, Scott, exclusively about you setting up female profiles. I didn't realise you set up boys as well. You pretend to be a teenage boy online and bring in other kind of paedophiles as well.
We've caught quite a few people who've wanted to meet boys as well, like some very sick stuff as well that I can't talk about on radio, but
they send you images as part of the grooming process, do they?
Yeah,
often?
Sometimes, yeah.
Which is a crime in itself, so it all builds up the evidence.
I mean, once they send a picture of their private parts or a private part, it's sort of like a Category 1 offence.
Of course.
So, when they do that sort of thing, it knocks up in the thing. But, a lot of them getting Category 1 even without sending because of history that they've got on that.
If you had 100 people working for you, would they all be as busy as you are every day?
Yeah. If we did have 100 people, working behind the scenes with us and whatnot, they'd never have any free time.
Probably guarantee 99 of them would quit within a week.
Oh, well, that's the thing. What's the closest you've come to quitting, Callum?
We've spoke when it's getting really hard and you're catching some dangerous offenders. You think, and you sort of think, am I being stupid here, or am I putting my life on the line? But I've came close, but I've never actually done it. We've thought about quitting, but then you think, how many people are these people abusing? And that's what sort of motivates you.
What do your family think? The ones that know?
They just don't want to talk about it when we're at their house because it's a depressing subject.
Right, yeah, that's true.
They're
do they worry for you, though? Do they worry about your safety?
It's constant texts oh, you okay? What you're up to?
Flipping heck.
Are you on a sting? Are you okay? Have you been injured? Or
yeah, of course. Do they get it, though?
Yeah.
Do they ever beg you to stop, Scott?
No, they've never. They know, now that we're grown-ups, we can pretty much do anything we want. They always just say it was just, use your head, and if it gets on heavy, don't go in steaming, get yourself out of there, you know what I mean?
Yes. You're quite, given that before I met you, I wasn't quite sure what to expect. We've been in touch with each other before this even became a possibility of you coming on, because I've expressed my admiration for the work that you do, and we've DM'd each other on social media and that sort of thing. I didn't know what to expect, and the thing that has perhaps surprised me is, and it also, I think, explains why you're so effective, not only at doing what you do, but also as ambassadors for what you're doing. You're quite down-to-earth guys. You're quite calm and solid and level-headed, even though the feelings that the people you catch engender are the opposite of that. They excite passions within our hearts that we can't control. It's the closest I would ever come to supporting the death penalty or taking the law into my own hands. You're incredibly, I'll use the word cool in its purest sense, and that perhaps is part of the reason why you have the attitude you have. It just feels that you have to do it, but you're not doing it for glory, you're not doing it for money, you're not doing it for clicks and likes or anything like that. You're doing it because somewhere inside you feel you have to.
It's just you want to be the change that you want to see in humanity, you know what I mean? And yeah, okay, we do get depressed, we get down about everything and that, but how we see it is better for this to destroy us than to destroy a child. And we'll happily go for this for the next, if we can live till the age of 90, we'll do it from now till the age of 90 and let them target our brains and not get their hands or their into a child's mind, you know what I mean? So we don't mind, and we like to stay cool because we're just sort of like yin and yang. We get on, we have a laugh with each other,
I was about to ask that, because I wonder, and I mean, I'm no psychologist, and I've only just met you, but if you hadn't met, if you weren't mates, this wouldn't have happened, would it? There's something about the chemistry here that has created the project, created Dark Justice. Am I right?
Yeah.
Oh, definitely. I mean, like, we couldn't do this with anybody else. Like, we both have certain aspects about our personalities, about our lives, where when it comes together, it's sort of like, it's like a family bond, if you like.
I do get it.
I know Scott's family. Scott and Scott knows my family, and it's like.
Can we do something together then? Can we? Because we've got a newsroom in the northeast. Can we? Because obviously, in order to report it, we'll have to wait until the very end of the process. If you catch someone and there's a conviction, we can't do anything while the case is live.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Can we put a reporter in touch with you in Newcastle and track one of your sting operations from the very beginning, right through until sentencing? Can we do that?
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you.
That's what we do as well. The way you're gonna do it, we never report on anything till it's.
Well, you can't, can you? Because it's
legally, because jury members can get swayed if they've seen our Facebook and say, "Oh, I know, I've seen that video on Facebook," and it's.
All right. Well, we'll do that, and you'll accept a couple more of these compliments that are coming in. What a powerful programme. Thanks, these men from me, says Faye. There are still good people in this increasingly wicked world. How do I donate towards their expenses? A lot of people are asking that, and I am quite happy to tell you. Go to darkjustice.co.uk. I'll put my teeth in now. And you can follow the instructions there on how to do it. I think this is one of your fellow Geordies here. I've just sent a tenner, he writes. Go for it, Bonnie lads. Doesn't sound like a resident of...
Cheers,
and quite a few people just wanting to say thank you to you. I haven't covered the nuance side of it, which is where people feel that you shouldn't be doing what you're doing, because if you didn't, and this is where we'll leave it, no one else would they?
What's the question? How do we stop it? That's for people to decide, and
we can throw money at it until we're blue in the face, but unless action's going to be taken, nothing's going to change.
It's got to be a proactive thing. Until if we weren't proactive, then offenders wouldn't be getting caught.
And just to remind people how many offenders have been caught since that November day in 2014, 69 out of 75 turned up to meet what they thought was a minor following a programme of sexual grooming. The 6 who didn't turn up, incidentally, still get reported to police, because as soon as they arrange the meeting, they're in criminal territory. And of course the pictures sent and the grooming process can be criminal as well. 42 of those 75 have been 75 arrested, 42 so far convicted, many of them still on bail or remand awaiting court dates. And of the 42 convicted, 20 received custodial sentences. The rest received suspended sentences or community orders. Scott, Callum, Dark Justice, thank you.
Thank you.